Hi, we're back, and in this video lecture, we're going to be talking more about soft tissue disorders. And again, a lot of these you can see from the word parts, their inflammation, their pain, things like myo myositis, polymyositis, bursitis. In other words, inflammation, bursitis being inflammation of the bursa sac, fibromyalgia, and others. So again, get a sense of what these terms mean. If you're not familiar with them, consult your medical dictionary. That'll help you understand what it involves and direct you to the correct code. Epicondylitis and medial epicondylitis. Lateral epicondylitis is the inflammation above condyle. Could be in the middle, meaning medial, could be lateral, meaning on the side. Achilles tendon contracture means exactly what it means. Could be either acquired, as in M67.0, or Q66.89, meaning other specified congenital deformity. Pay close attention to the main terms, like for instance, the fourth bullet point is muscle spasms, muscle cramps, right? Kind of straightforward. Look at the fourth bullet point. What's the main term? It's the spondylolithiasis, right? And then you would get into the finer detail, traumatic type 3. Osteochondrosis, osteochondropathy. Note again, this is the same code. Same thing as Kienbock's disease. So important take-home message from this slide is you may have different ways of referring to these. Kienbock's disease is the same thing as osteochondropathy, osteitis deformans, otherwise known as Paget's disease. Again, Kienbock's and Paget's are eponyms. In other words, these are things named for people that studied the disease. So those are always a good place to start for main terms. Sometimes musculoskeletal disorders will originate with other body systems. So we can have the muscular dystrophy, myasthenia gravis is illustrated here. We can have cerebral palsy, we can have hemiplegia, we can sometimes have muscle tumors. So a lot of these things are just focusing on where to start. And in this case, the muscle tumors, you would treat like any other neoplasm. Remember, neoplasms are more than just cancer per se. So in this case, how I would approach it, start with cancer. If you see a term that has a histological term like myoma, something like that, that's a good cue to start with the alphabetic index. Otherwise, you'd do the neoplasm by site. Muscular dystrophy, again, you would go to the tabular, look these things up, myasthenia gravis, right? The important thing to get your mind around is to start with the main term and then get into the particulars of the condition. Congenital disorders are things that individuals are born with, congenital myopathies, right, as illustrated in G71.2. We could also have developmental dysplasia of the hip. We can have sometimes other congenital deformities of the hip. Key here is to read carefully and figure out exactly what they're looking at. Klippel-Feil syndrome, right? Again, syndrome being the main term, right? Syndrome, what kind of syndrome? Klippel-Feil. And then spina bifida, important to keep going and make sure you get as close to what is actually in the documentation that describes what type of spina bifida. I was going to continue on, but I think it would make the lecture a little bit too long for you to digest in one bite. So in the next video lecture, we'll be going forward and discussing pathological fractures.